year-long investigation, the Miami Herald says it has located 60 women who say they were molested or sexually assaulted by multimillionaire Jeffrey Epstein, several telling their stories publicly for the first time. One tells the Herald this is about justice, not just for them, but for, quote, other victims who aren't Olympic athletes or Hollywood stars. This is video of Jeffrey Epstein's home taken by investigators during a search of the multimillionaire's Palm Beach mansion. It is where Epstein was involved with at least 40 underage girls, some of whom he had sex with, according to court filings obtained by NBC News. Several of his accusers speaking out for the first time to the Miami Herald.
I was 16.
I was 16. I started going to him when I was like 14 turning 15.
A report from the Palm Beach Police Department alleges the girls were promised money in exchange for massages, and that a female who recruited young teens for the tycoon allegedly told one victim, "The more you do, the more you get paid."
He just laid down in his towel on his stomach, and he was just talking to people on the phone. When he flipped over, that's when he said, "Okay, you can go ahead and take off your shirt and pants."
The accounts include accusations from indecent exposure to inappropriate touching to rape.
Ben Oshie says, "What's Richard's take on your Epstein donation?" Did you watch my yesterday show, Richard?
I didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay, because I announced that just for transparency, because I was talking about a news item about Jeff Epstein, and I announced that Jeff Epstein has once contributed to the start of my YouTube channel with a $25,000 check, and that since then my YouTube channel has kind of taken a different direction, and people were scandalized. They were like, "JF is an agent of a Jewish millionaire rapist." And as I
he's that person. You were joking, I presume.
No, I'm not joking. This is real. Jeff Epstein was a founder to one of my nonprofits in the U.S. with a $25,000 check in 2015, I believe.
Wow. This is the Jeffrey Epstein who has like a pedophile island or something, and is it Clinton?
Well, at the time he had not been found guilty, I believe, of this yet, but there were allegations.
JF claimed in 2 different occasions that Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile billionaire Jew who had an island full of underage girls where he had sex with them, was one of the founders of his non-for-profit company that was going to be a YouTube channel called Neuro TV. Well, upon digging into the companies started by JF, we found only one company, which was called Neuro TV, and found a list of the executive board, which would also include the founders. Curiously enough, Jeffrey Epstein was not on this list. I wonder why. The second claim he makes is...
Well, at the time, he had not been found guilty, I believe, of this.
He is saying that Jeffrey Epstein in 2015 was not convicted yet. He is also trying to justify it by saying he should have the pedophiles' money and not them. It makes it better.
You should want to take the money out of their bank account and put it in other people's bank accounts. So from a moral...
And why is this high IQ individual keep saying Jeffrey Epstein never got charged in 2015? Let's go through the history of Jeffrey Epstein's creepy endeavors in the world of pedophilia. I found a few articles during my research, but recently I just found the Miami Herald made a timeline. Let's check this out. 2005, March, a 14-year-old girl and her parents report that Jeffrey Epstein molested her at a mansion in Palm Beach. In April, Palm Beach police begin trash pulls at Epstein's home, discovering a telephone message for Epstein with the girl's name on it and a time that matched the time that she told the police she was there. October, with a police probe in full swing, one of Epstein's assistants calls one of the girls just as she begins to be questioned by the police. Investigators begin interviewing more girls as well as Epstein's butlers, who tell them that Epstein had frequent visits from girls throughout the day. On October 20th, they execute a search warrant at his house on El Brillo Way in Palm Beach. 2006, May, police sign a probable cause affidavit charging Epstein and 2 of his assistants with multiple counts of unlawful sex acts with a minor. The Palm Beach State Attorney, Barry Krischer, instead refers the case to a grand jury. June, The grand jury, after hearing from one girl, returns an indictment of 1 count of solicitation of prostitution. The charge does not reflect that the victim in question and others were minors. July. Epstein's powerhouse legal team tries to negotiate a deal with the state attorney's office. Lawyers discuss a deferred prosecution in which Epstein would enter a pretrial intervention program and serve no jail time. July. After pressure from the Palm Beach police chief, the FBI opens a federal investigation dubbed Operation Leap Year. Documents list the possible crime as child prostitution. 2007. May. As the U.S. Attorney's Office prepares to present the case to a federal grand jury, Epstein's attorneys request a meeting to discuss the investigation. September. Federal prosecutors drop several federal plea agreements that are rejected by Epstein and his attorneys. Epstein signs a non-prosecution agreement on September 24th, but his attorneys continue to delay his court appearance. 2008. January. Epstein attorney Levalchowitz calls Acosta, telling him his client will not go through the agreement because it requires him to register as a sex offender. February. With the plea negotiations and the Justice Department review still in limbo, the FBI continues its probe, locating more witnesses and evidence. March. Preparations are made for a new federal grand jury presentation. In court documents, the U.S. Attorney's Office notes that Epstein's victims are being harassed by his lawyers, who are not specifically named. May. The Justice Department issues a finding that if a plea deal is not reached, Epstein can be federally prosecuted. June. Epstein's lawyer revisits plea negotiations, and on June 30th, Epstein appears in Palm Beach County courtroom. He pleads guilty to state charges, 1 count of solicitation and prostitution, and 1 count of solicitation of prostitution with a minor under the age of 18. He is sentenced to 18 months in jail, followed by a year of community control or house arrest. He is adjudicated as a convicted sex offender who must register twice a year in Florida. July. Epstein's victims learn about his plea in state court after the fact. They file an emergency petition to force federal prosecutors to comply with the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act, which mandates certain rights for crime victims, including the right to be informed about plea agreements and the right to appear at sentencing. August. Epstein's victims learn that he's already been sent to jail and that the federal investigation is over. They seek to have his plea agreement unsealed, but federal prosecutors argue against releasing the agreement, commencing a year-long court battle to learn the terms of Epstein's plea bargain. By June 30th, 2008, 36 underage victims have been identified by prosecutors.
As you can see, JF already had the company established, and then he changed where the company was incorporated in 2014. So he said it was started in 2015, but you can clearly see right here that the company was signed into incorporation on September 25th, 2013. He also claimed that this guy was one of the founders, but JF is the founder of this company. And the only person that's listed that we know of is Diana Z, the treasurer. So he took money, $25,000, from a convicted pedophile who owned a pedophile island.
To me, if you hate pedophiles, you should want to take the money out of their bank account and put it in other people's bank accounts. So from a moral perspective, I was totally fine with that.
Oh, I get that argument, but the implication of someone donating money is that, you know, you pay the piper, you get to call the tune, and so but
well, this was a conditionless donation because it was an educational show that I had, Neuro TV, and so to me it was no problem. And I've talked to the media back then. I remember receiving a call from a mainstream media journalist, and he was like, "Do you mind about the fact that he has committed crimes?" But I was like, I do not support crimes, but I will not refuse money for a non-profit in the US that does good work, even if it comes from a bad person. I would take a check directly from the devil.
just jumped in the stream. Are you gonna do a response to Andy's video? I'd love to see one. I love you, but Andy, you're failing as his third wrangler. He needs help. So I'm failing as Andy's third wrangler. Well, the thing is, Andy is no, I'm not going to respond to his stuff because there's enough self-contradiction within this video. At this point, Andy Warski, this is all I'm gonna say about him. I predict, this is a prediction, I predict that Andy Warski is on such a downtrend mentally and physically that within the next 7 years, Andy Warski will have AIDS. I predict that he's going to end up having AIDS in some way.
This guy got f***ing herpes from f***ing a student that he was supposed to be mentoring, gave it to his wife, and then when his wife didn't want to be with him anymore, he went out of his way to terrorize her and everyone else involved.
I've been taking some of the finest viruses in this world. And I've always liked to take in all of the viruses. It's a collection for me, and I enjoy it.
One of the most interesting things about JF, that most of the time, almost 100% of the time, if someone makes a video about him, he will respond in a live stream. So it's funny that he won't respond to the video. If it's full of contradictions, he would definitely review it. Oh, did low IQ Andy make a video too hot for JF to handle? He's a liar. He knows he's a liar. And he is psychotic. And I don't mean figuratively. I mean he's literally psychotic. Because thanks to my old friend Zoom, aka Godspeed, which you could find his streams on, he was able to obtain the court documents from his previous marriage and a psych evaluation of JF from Duke University where he used to work. And these are official documents. And the only response that JF had was, "They're not real. They are not real." They're not real? Well, they are public record. So anyone watching this when I go over that part will be able to verify it themselves. And I gotta say to the people who worship JF, oh, he's so high IQ, he's amazing, he knows everything. You're gonna be in for a really disgusting, disturbing surprise. But before I get to that, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. The first thing is, JF throughout the past few months has been an incredible dick to me. He loves just taking pot shots at me, calling me low IQ, calling me lazy, which by the way, I love how he's like, Andy will not sue Jared Holt, he will not follow through. Well, yeah, I'm suing Jared Holt. That's happening. Because I actually followed through. That's right, JF. You underestimate me constantly. And that was your downfall. Underestimating little old Andy. You could say you're doing fine. You could act like you're doing fine. But I could see you shaking. But since you took all these pot shots at me, thought you were untouchable, thought you were being hilarious. Oh, let's keep ridiculing Andy because he'll never retaliate. Before I go into the documents that show how insane you are, let's talk about one thing. You always say that you're a Chad. You're a Chad. That you're alpha male, Papa JF. I get all the girls. Andy, you're lazy. Low IQ. If that was true, then why are all your girlfriends that you've had publicly?
I had a bad life, but then after I discovered GF, then I started to look at GF every day. I was always looking at GF. I became crazy. I lost everything I had. I lost my job, my family. I quit school. I lost everything. I was just looking at GF all the time. I was crazy. And then after I wrote to him, I said, GF, I want to suck your dick. And then he told me. And that's my background.
You lost your job because you were addicted.
I lost everything.
You lost everything because you were addicted to my shows.
Yeah, I was just looking at your show all the time. Even I had a job, and I was going to hide in the bathroom to listen to your show. And I was then my boss said, "Why you always disappeared for 10 minutes?" Then you fired me. I lost everything, my family, my friends, everything, because I was just looking at GF show all the time.
You've never told me that.
Yeah.
Wow. That is some dedicated fan right here.
This is a... This is disgusting, degenerate, unacceptable.
Do we think
intolerable? I think she acts. You know what I mean? Like that's not.
Right.
That's not. Suppose she's somebody's saying maybe she's hard of hearing, but that's not deaf. Look, they're deaf to talk like this, and there's French people are just weird, and that's fine. This isn't that, dude. Okay, a deaf girl doesn't become so obsessed with an e-celeb, as a B-list e-celeb, that she loses her job and can't function and becomes fixated.
Graffiti. I said, again, graffitis. Actually, I didn't know what it was about. And it's always frustrating. You got to paint over again. I looked up the name, and I saw that he wants to make ethno-states, GF Gariepy, and he's from the province of Quebec. Never heard of him. And from what I've read, some of it on Wikipedia, I didn't quite agree with him.
Now, this is the surveillance footage. I guess we'll wait till the text disappears. I'll let chat be the judge of who this person.
It looks like a male, but I have a.
No, let me freeze frame it here at 46. Let's go ahead and play it.
Feeling it's a female, especially it's written in pink, and.
Okay, so I'll freeze it at 50 seconds. Does this person look familiar to you, Zidane or Gator?
Yeah, a little bit actually.
Yeah, just a bit.
Do you have a better opinion of who this may be?
I would like you to take a good look.
Why can't? Is it get closer?
No.
From this angle, it could be anybody. Wait a second. Is this the girl who was accusing No White Guilt of attacking her?
What do you have to say?
No, I get seriously. You tried to kill me, okay?
Okay.
And I'm fucking sick that you're fucking me with me. You always follow me everywhere.
Your Honor, we're making the case as to whether or not J.F. Gariepy is a serial. All rise. We read the docket. So we spent about a half hour on Nightwave last night just trying to get to the bottom of whether or not she was or just French Canadian, you know. But I did actually run this down through our Canadian crew.
Downs. I ran this down.
It's not funny.
What?
This isn't funny.
You're right.
Rape is no laughing matter.
Okay, let's see what Deaf Bonnie McFarlane's sister has to say.
But we had to run it through the Canadians, Jim N-word, Frozen Asian. We had to have a whole panel of Canadians, and they voted that she is in fact and French Canadian.
Both.
I have no idea what it is, but Jeff, I'd like your take on it since it's out there in the public spectrum, or public arena. Jeff, I'm paraphrasing because the tweet's deleted, but you said essentially, JF is the guy that had to have the state intervene because he was too busy retards. What the is that about? How old was she?
She was 19 years old.
Okay, so she was an adult.
She had to leave her parents and to live with me. And she had decided to start a family with me. She was found in this proceeding that violates the United States Constitution in her absence.
Yeah,
From autism, like how bad was the autism?
Jesus, Andy.
I'm just saying, like, imagine you're like, no, Dad, like, I'm good.
What kind of question is that? Here's this heartbreaking story. So how was she?
You know, I started off, I saw the clip on Ralph's show. He showed this potato person appeared and started like rambling about how JF was a spiritual leader. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, is this real? Like, am I comprehending reality? Is what I'm seeing here actual fact, or is this like I couldn't even understand the words. I was so mind-fucked by it. And then as I watched it the second, third time, I started to comprehend the horror of what was going on. And I realized there's probably a deeper rabbit hole to this. So I was starting to trace it back and create an autistic timeline. It's not super in depth, but you know, the first time I saw this is JF makes confession of this autistic girlfriend to Warski and Medicare on a stream. So like Medicare is almost like taking his side, it seems like, during this. But Warski right away questions like, wait a minute, you had an autistic girlfriend. How old was she? She was 19. Okay, so it's not pedophilia, but then why was she declared mentally incompetent and taken away from you? He's like, well, it is true love, and I am very in love with her, and the courts, it was wrong. And then the second occurrence of this shit was that I saw was like JF debating Destiny on this. And from what I was watching, it seemed as though Destiny was crushing JF with the court documents that he was 32 at the time and she was 19, and apparently the psychiatrists had found out that, or had determined rather, that she had the brain of an 11-year-old. So you have JF, who's 32, apparently preying upon someone with the mind of an 11-year-old. And then you have, but the best part of this for me was Warski jumps in and defends his partner. Like, this is okay. Like, this is good. And I just have to imagine what was going through Warski's mind as he's learning all this shit. It's like, oh my God, I did how many shows with this guy? Then I see, okay, so apparently this first potato girl Mexican, he's fucking abandoned to their fate. She's been taken back by her dad. Now, one thing that blew my mind is in that stream, JF admitted that the dad had assaulted him. Like, for real. Like, this is some real Jerry Springer shit. Like, Jeremy Kyle level shit. Where I'm like, what the f***? Why would you ever admit that? We didn't need to know that the dad came and kicked your ass for molesting his daughter. Holy shit, JF. So then I saw a clip of Richard Spencer and JF, and a second potato girl appears in the Spencer clip for a few moments. And I just imagine what the f*** crossed Spencer's mind. He's like, I've seen some weird shit in my CIA ops in my time, but what the f***?
The political activists must look at people like me as resources. I am a resource that you can come on my show and get all of the exposure that I can possibly provide. And all of the good words. And I'm like, yeah, Jason, great. White civil rights. Wow. Wonderful. Go ahead and defend that stuff. It makes total sense. Go for it. And then I can give you all the coverage that I can possibly generate. Hello, Mama JF. How are you doing?
You're my resource. I will exploit you.
No, you don't treat me as a resource. I was talking about Jason Kessler. You treat me as your God. So, the problem is there will be,
so I'm going to preface this with a somewhat meaningless preface that I don't like to do, digging into like personal attacks. JF has described this as me digging into his history. The only reason I'm kind of interested in this is because JF has brought it up on at least 2 independent occasions across different podcasts, and he seems to have a way of telling this story that makes me a little bit uncomfortable, and the fact that he brings it up publicly and then kind of defends it feels a little bit weird to me. An unrelated third party said that he was somewhat familiar with JF because he's also a PhD neuroscientist, and he posted the court documents that he found. So this is something that kind of bothers me because this is one of those things where, like, even if you remove the mental illness aspect from this girl, I think that what JF has done is incredibly disgusting and insanely irresponsible. So basically, I'm not going to use even any of the court-sourced stuff. In JF's own words, a 19-year-old girl communicated with him online. He fell in love with her. He convinced her to leave her family and join him in North Carolina. And then after 3 weeks of being with her, a girl that had never lived on her own, worked a job, lived apart from her parents, been in a relationship, he convinced her to try to have a child with him. That is insanely inappropriate for a 32-year-old guy to do that to a 19-year-old girl.
The last thing I want to mention in this video is the last case that Jean-Francois Gariepy has been part of. He has mentioned this many times in different streams, talking about his ex-wife and the son that they had together. In the streams where he discusses this, he continuously talks about how the court favors women over men, and he has lost custody and visitation rights for his son, and it was unfair. JF now is constantly telling people that what I am saying in the videos is false allegations. Luckily, Zoom, or Godspeed, was able to obtain more court documents on this case, showing us that JF definitely should not have custody or visitation on his son. In fact, he should stay away. Actually, he needs to stay away because his ex-wife has a restraining order against him. And while he acts like the victim, he is definitely not the victim. Zoom also obtained the psych evaluation on JF.
Some hilarious responses from the frog camp. Just want to show you guys this this response. Pull this up.
The second thing is, a lot of people are asking me, Jeff, will you answer to Andy Warski's attack on you? I will not. Andy Warski has just collected a list of false allegations against me that were done for many years. I've already denied all of these things, and he has led to misinterpretations. Of course, it's all intentional on the side of Andy. There will be no answers on my part because I have nothing to answer. I have already denied that the things that are in his documents are true. Those are just claims that people are making against me.
Those are just claims that people are making against me. Oh, okay. I guess if they're claims, I can take you at your word, JF. Oh, wait. You signed this. Oh, what's this? What's this? Oh, let's zoom in, everybody. Is this Mr. Gariepy's signature? Right here? A certificate of compliance with the state? I don't know. Could be hearsay. What's this? Oh, proof of service? Huh? Oh, what's... is that his signature too? The custody order is fatally defective? Here's where you claim that they misused your words when you said that you wanted to kill your wife? And you wanted to kill her representatives? Yeah, what was that? Let's zoom in on that. Plaintiff appellee claims that the mere use of words kill her justifies findings 33, 57, and 58. However, he clearly indicates that he was using those words in the context on a podcast that was not sent to her. A podcast in which he was asked to explain the mentality of a serial killer as a cognitive psychologist. Plaintiff appellee makes a case that the first part of finding 32 is valid, which is correct. The defendant is not taking any psychotropic medication or receiving ongoing supervision. You see this document right here? You're confirming in your argument that the psych eval is real. And these are more documents that people haven't seen. You signed both of these. You just signed this on the 4th day of January 2018. Is that your signature in what was that, 2017 in November? Oh, seems like you comply to the word count of the appellate brief and you're complying with the rules. Oh, here's another brief. Oh, JF, it's weird how all these documents that I have that you claim don't exist, I somehow have them and got them from the courts. Let's see what this one is. DS-17. Oh. It's almost like I have all of the docket information for every appellate brief, the information, and he got all of these. And it's got all of his information right here. Here's the slip opinion for the court. It was affirmed by the judge that you did not win this case and that you're nuts. But, you know, it's all in our heads, guys. We're all crazy. You know, JF, you know, he did nothing wrong. Oh, what's this? Oh, is this JF signing the actual psychiatric evaluation? Huh. Let's see. We had Dr. Calloway's report, which she complies with. And then all the way at the bottom, JF signs the f***ing form. Oh, here's your complaint. Here's where they talked about how you're f***ed in the head. Here's the verification, and here's the statements that the nurses made against you, claiming that you were planning to kidnap your child. And this has multiple people confirming that you plan to do this. Here's the affidavit from the f***ing private eye that said that you got herpes from f***ing your lab assistant, and that's why you got fired from Duke. And that you had an intersection of mental health disorders. You get down to part 9, you argue that you did cheat on your wife, but that you weren't looking at her emails. And my favorite part is that you never argue about trying to get a Canadian passport so you can kidnap your child. You never once make a counterclaim against that. That you spent months preparing your house so that you could take care of your child. And you claim that your ex-wife was going to let you be a stay-at-home dad so she could become a therapist. And that she didn't appreciate it, but she'd already separated from you and moved out at this time. So, like the psychological report says, you have your own world in your brain that you believe is real. This woman has moved out of your house and has a restraining order against you. That's very strange, JF, because you told people publicly that you left your job because you were tired of academia. Yet in court, you're claiming that you left because you were going to be a stay-at-home father. This is your fucking document. During infancy, the defendant would put great care on basic motor and emotional development of the child. How are you going to help a child develop emotionally when your psychiatric evaluation says that you're detached from emotion and lack the ability to experience empathy and are almost sociopathic at times? That's just weird. Well, then he starts talking about the psychologist report, which he confirms. And he confirms that the psychologist report is real. And then he signs his name again. So here he is on the 22nd of January, 2016, signing his name that the psychological report that was submitted by Dr. Calloway was real.
There will be no answers on my part because I have nothing to answer. I have already denied that the things that are in his documents are true. Those are just claims that people are making against me.
Just claims. Okay, JF. If they're just claims, why did you sign this? Why did you not only sign this, but get it notarized by a notary, Sam Sawaya, on July 29th, 2019, or 2000 and... Oh, wait, this person's, their shit expires in 2019. You got this signed on the 22nd of January, 2016. You signed this in front of a notary, and you confirmed that you signed it, and you showed your ID, and you proved that you signed this. Motion for change of psychological evaluation. He picked the doctor, Dr. Ginger Calloway. He admits that he left a message on Dr. Calloway's machine. He admits that he met her at her office and talked about the order on February 12th. He wrote an affidavit documenting the conversation, which is joined in the motion.
The final thing I'll be looking at when talking about JF will be his psych evaluation. He did this evaluation on March 13th, 2016 with Dr. Ginger Calloway. In the order of evaluation, it was noted that Dr. Gariepy should participate in a full-scale psychological evaluation and parenting capacity evaluation. A comprehensive psychological evaluation was conducted. Due to his comments on the intake form for the ABH Center that included notes about taking his child home from supervised visitation there and being in agreement with being filmed at the center if law enforcement was contacted, Due to the court's notice of multiple concerns for Dr. Gariepy's mental health and the court's question about his willingness to follow court orders, and due to the risk for safety with regard to the child noted by the court, this examiner is not willing to request that the court allow an observation of Dr. Gariepy with his child. A decision about his fitness to parent therefore lies ultimately with the court. Does the parent manifest mental health symptoms? In the various records reviewed, in interviews with Dr. Gariepy and others, and from the psychological testing, the answer to this is yes. He does manifest mental health symptoms. He was specifically diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. Testing with the MMPI-2 suggests difficulty with recognition of problems or lack of insight, and a style of underreporting his possible symptoms or difficulties. His score on one validity scale from the MMPI is sufficiently evaluated to warrant an interpretation of extreme lack of insight and extreme attempts at self-control. This evaluation is seen in protocols suggestive of overt psychosis. This finding from the MMPI-2 regarding psychosis is consistent with findings from the Rorschach ink blot measure that indicate noteworthy substantial difficulties with reality testing, perception, and thinking that exceeds normative guides. His thinking is distorted with regard on how he perceives others and the external world. Therefore, his interpretation of events and others' motives will be hampered severely relative to the norm. His translation of reality and interpretations of the world around him are routinely or habitually impaired. Difficulty accomplishing day-to-day tasks effectively is likely to be highly problematic. He has some awareness of this when he characterizes himself as not likely to compromise. His thinking is marked by a routine lack of logic and a habitual lack of coherence to his thought patterns. The quality of his thinking is often tangential in nature. As it was throughout much of the interview with him, he frequently goes off task in his thinking and talking and seems at these times to be reacting to internal sources of irritation, such as was the case when he asked his understanding of the need for the current evaluation. His thinking is sufficiently marred that he finds it difficult to interpret accurately, even when matters are simplified and made highly conventional or obvious. The combination of marked disturbances in his thinking and limited understanding of others makes for noteworthy difficulties in social and interpersonal relations, especially with regard to communication. He has limited insight and capacity for empathy. Despite the underreporting or overly positive response style exhibited with the MMPI-2 that suggests considerable emotional distress that is not being reported, supplementary scales from the MMPI-2 suggest he is socially introverted and experiences great discomfort with social interactions. This is substantiated in the various reports about his behaviors both in employment and interpersonal relationships. He also appears lacking in self-confidence, is irritable and impatient with others, and may enjoy frightening or intimidating others. His struggles with understanding others result in lack of empathy regarding others, in that he finds it near impossible to take the perspective of another. His prognosis is guarded because he perceives himself as flawless or without psychological problems. He describes himself as not much on compromise, a finding consistent with findings from the Rorschach, wherein he can be described as inflexible and unyielding. This aspect of his functioning is likely what causes difficulties for him relating with others in a variety of situations. This inflexibility, his lack of insight, and the level of his thought disturbance do not bode well for behavioral change. Does the parent experience problems in social relationships? The psychological test results, the interview and complaint reports of Miss Newton and the interview of Miss Z suggest that he experiences problems in social relationships that are deeply concerning for lack of empathy, need to control the other person's behaviors, emotions and thinking, and emotional reactivity. Of further concern during this evaluation is that Dr. Gariepy seldom talked about his child, offered no specific detail about his child, and seemed lacking in any knowledge about his son. Does the parent experience an unusual degree of anger, hostility, and temper control problems? Some tests' findings suggest lack of temper control that are consistent with the reports of Miss Newton and Miss Z, specifically that at times he grew volatile and intent on his interpretations of matters. His various behaviors suggest, as several individuals have recommended to Miss Newton, that a domestic violence protective order, DVPO, should be in place to protect Miss Newton and the infant child. Are mental health problems treatable or amendable to rehabilitation? Dr. Gariepy lacks an insight regarding his difficulties with thinking and his interactions with others in employment and personal relations, and well as a lack of empathy do not bode well for successful treatment of his mental health problems. Determine if defendant is fit and proper person to exercise supervised custodial time with a minor child. It was not possible to evaluate this because Dr. Gariepy could not be observed with the child. This examiner was not willing to accept the risks involved in requesting that the court allow a visitation for observation. Determination of this ultimate question lies with the court. Despite not reaching a conclusion with regard to the ultimate question before the court, the examiner has provided a number of areas considered relevant to the issue of parental capacity and has provided conclusions within those areas for the court's consideration. And there you have it, everyone. The twisted mind of Jean-Francois Gariepy.